God has been sent to you.
No?
Yeah, you're on. Are you on here?
I should be on. Yep. Hey. Yeah, thanks. What a lovely introduction. When we were singing that last song, I will give you all my worship. I will give you all my praise. My kind of those kind of sentiments have been a prayer of mine all my life, and I've been challenged by it because, like, putting God first, putting God as number one, it needs to be for us a constant reminder. And I think when we go into Monkgate, that's ultimately the sentiment of how I see church. I want us to be a church, a community that puts God as number one, and we kind of follow his heart and follow his voice. So if we rewind back over probably almost 2 years ago, there was a pastor at a church of the Ark Church, and they were using the Monkgate building, and they knew that it was coming up for sale. And Paul, myself, Vicky, Debbie, and Robbie got first kind of looks at the building. And I've been a member of York Elim now pretty much all my life. I think I moved to York when I was about 5 years old. Sorry? 3. Well, there you go. It's a heck of a long time. And I remember our old building, which is in the centre of town. It's now a couple of restaurants, one called the Biltmore and one called Oscar's. And we moved out of that building because it was problematic. It's in the heart of the city centre. It's really, like, everything's pedestrianised. It's really busy. There's wine bars and pubs and all sorts around there. There wasn't a community for us to reach out to. And it had quite serious kind of maintenance issues and things that we needed to rectify. So we went into Monkgate, and I'm automatically seeing damp on the walls and these maintenance issues that we need to rectify. And I'm also seeing kind of challenges with parking and other stuff. And I left that kind of initial view just thinking, oh no, that's not the best that you've got for us, God, there's something else. And we'd been through, historically, we were looking at a place called Hospital Fields Road. And I'd got kind of slightly excited about that. But the challenge that was brought to us from the council at the time, because we were looking at planning permission to redevelop it and change it. And one of the things that they'd said was, there's not enough parking. Well, this thing had like probably 20, maybe 25 spaces at a push. And they saw us as a massive church that probably required about 80 car parking spaces, 60 for bikes. And we, myself, Vicky, we'd done transport plans. We'd done kind of interviews with the congregation, and we'd looked at how people travelled to church and all this kind of stuff. And ultimately, at Hospital Fields Road, we had to walk away. So I'm looking at Monkgate, and I'm thinking, how on earth do we make this work? And I think over time, we all know that there's this narrative about sustainability and sustainable travel and all that kind of stuff that's going on. And we do need to kind of look at that as a congregation and see how we can do that. And I think as well, doing Elim Link, somehow we've made it work with limited parking and all those kind of problems that exist. And we've also, with the church, when we do move into Monkgate, we've got a car park at a local school, so we've built kind of a relationship with them that we can utilise. And so slowly, God's kind of showing us how these pieces of the jigsaw fit together. So all I can see is problems, and God overcomes them. I'm going to show you some of the stuff of where we're at. So in the background for the last few months now, myself, a design team, Rama, we've been kind of talking about how to get a mezzanine floor put here. I don't know if you can see that red line there. But yeah, that's going to be installed. We've got a lift coming in, and there's kind of alterations that are going to happen to the building to make it work for us upstairs doing church, but also so that we can start to reach out into the community and use the downstairs room for Sunday school, but also kind of during the week we're going to have multiple activities and things going on. So I'm going to quickly go through some of these drawings. So you can appreciate there's a lot of work that goes into this. One of the complications that has arisen is that we can't just install these things without meeting the current building regulation standards. So I know a lot of you will appreciate what happened at Grenfell. It was a massive fire in a tower block, and as a consequence of that, a lot of the standards that we need to work to now, if we change one thing, we need to change others in order to meet the new standards. So we're having to, at the back of the church, at the back of church here, there was an existing staircase, but it was too steep and not wide enough. So we've had to demolish what was the old vestry, demolish the staircase, and we're having to, in effect, rebuild the staircase and create a new fire exit at the back. So there's been quite a lot of consultation. There's been quite a lot of work that's gone into that. So there's discussions that are going on with the theatre because their existing fire exit is non-compliant as well. So there's talks about kind of sharing that exit and making a kind of a new entrance from the theatre into ours as well. So we're helping them, but yeah. If I show you here, there's going to be a prayer room. This room here, which is the community room, we're going to put like bifold doors along two of the sides so that we can split that space off and make it into multifunctional, multi-use. There's a storeroom here, and at the moment that there is a fully solid wall. We're going to break through and hopefully use that as a bit of storage for chairs and seating and things like that. And also for food bank as well. We're going to put some racking in there, and we're going to use it to do a food bank. So upstairs we've got an area here for storage for furniture. We've got kind of toilets that are going to be here, accessible toilets, and then there's kind of a refuge and wheelchair area here. And this is one of the things that we're having to do for fire regulations. When you get to the top of the stairs, there's an existing lobby, but that's having to be made bigger so that we've got that kind of safe space for people to be. Basically, if there's a fire, you need to be able to be contained in that area for 2 hours. So it needs knocking down, rebuilding, and being made safe. Yeah, that's the new staircase at the back. So, and it's not quite right, but it's an artist's impression of what we're going to have upstairs, which I'm sure you'll agree looks fantastic. We are going to put like a screen up the side here, and I'm not quite sure if we'll get that number of seats in, but it's kind of just been put there as an impression. Yeah, it's not quite right. There are changes to that, but yeah, we can move on. Right, now I want you to get into groups if possible. Right. I want you to get into groups of between 3 and 8. If you can look at the people around you and just get together, you can move your seats. You've got a couple of minutes, well, 3 minutes to answer a question. You're going to need your phones. If you go to that website address there, slido.com, you don't all need to do this. It is just one person in your group who needs to do this. But yeah, I want to keep things moving, so we do need to be slightly quicker at this. Oh, sorry. So guys, this is your question. So you're visiting friends and have a short space of time to grab some items that you need for your new home from the range. So you're going shopping, but you've got a short space of time to do this. Once outside, you notice that a paintbrush that you've got in your pocket wasn't paid for. You don't have time to go back immediately. How do you handle it? You type in your answer. So I can see that one person's currently typing now. We good? So we've got some answers coming in. We've got next time. So as in next time you go to the shop, you'll pay for the extra. So yeah, we've got somebody who says take it home, come back later and pay online. We've got go back inside and pay, let your friends know that you're going to run late. Yeah, that's a good idea. And we've got take it home, come back later. So there's a sentiment in the room of, yes, I've made a mistake and I'm going to find a way to fix this. So this is a real story. It happened to a friend of mine called Steve Jenkins, and we're going to hear now what Steve did. You might.
Hey James, hello everyone. So the question of what do you do when you basically steal a paintbrush from the range? Well, I'll go through the story. So as James said, we were just shopping at the range. I happened to have put this cutting in brush, by the way, it's cutting in paintbrush, into my pocket and completely forgot about it. And then we'd paid, got into the car, and then I realised that it was still in my pocket. And when, while we were in the car, we were just discussing about the morality of whether we should return the paintbrush, given that it was only £2, and the amount of money that the range makes probably weighs out, my little theft. However, what we decided to do was we dropped off James and Vicky, and we were supposed to just go straight home. And I felt that it was right to return the paintbrush, and it was interesting because I kind of felt on the merit of just doing the right thing, but also feeling the call to do it, rather than necessarily it being the sort of a strict ethical code, if that makes sense. Anyway, I ended up basically coming back from James and Vicky's, missing the turning from the range because I was talking to Lydia, then going to get fuel, and then getting stuck in traffic on the way back. So it was about 15-20 minutes later that I actually managed to get to the range, and we were in a rush home. So yeah, it's funny because it was like, oh, we just need to get home, it's only £2, but in the end it really didn't matter. And these things are worth doing. It's worth following your convictions, I would suggest. Yes, I hope that story helps people in some way. All right, cheers, guys.
Oops, yep, next question. So the next question is, you're on a gap year from university, so for some of you, you'll have to cast your minds back quite a bit longer than others. You volunteer to work at a local charity, which works with children and young people. Whilst there, you discover that children are being abused and exploited. Who do you tell and what do you do about it? So a bit of a different question, a different feel to it, but yeah, I want to get your ideas in the room about what you'd do about this situation. So another 30 seconds, if that's all right. So I'll read out some of the answers that are coming in, because they'll disappear when more come on. Tell the police or orphanage leadership. Report and then sue them. Depends where this happened. UK, call the police. Uganda, maybe start with a missions organisation for advice. Somebody probably knows where I'm going with this. Safeguarding person, NSPCC, report and sue them. I saw somebody who mentioned police. Yeah, you're 100% right. You know, I think the safeguarding that's in place in our church, that would almost be my first port of call. I would, you know, talk to, you know, the people that we've got here. So a similar situation happened to Sean, who was a member at our church at the time. She'd gone to Uganda, and when she was there, it was during her university vacations, basically. So between the first year and the second year, she'd volunteered at this orphanage in Uganda. When she got there, she discovered that the children were being abused, and she made a decision to rescue them. So she'd gone at night and tried to take the kids out of that situation, and kind of putting myself in her shoes at such a young age, to set this thing up and get it off the ground and do so with very limited support, I think. It's an absolutely unbelievable story. She managed to get them temporarily set up at another orphanage, but that also turned out to be a place where the kids were being abused. So she ended up setting up her own. Let's have a look. So gradually, the name Biogems is the initials of the children who were saved. So each of their first names comes together to make the name Biogems. Elim, as a movement, took Biogems on board. We helped them and supported them as a charity. And Sean became, in effect, an Elim missionary. And we, every Christmas, we help and support their Christmas outreach and their Christmas appeals. They're doing amazing work. absolutely unbelievable. I've been invited to be one of the trustees of the group, which is really, really exciting for me as well, personally. So another person who is absolutely incredible and a privilege to be even a slight friend of this person is a lady called Bex. Now, Bex has set up a charity called Zarak. Bex was a secondary school teacher, assistant head teacher at inner city school in Leeds. Well, one day while she was teaching a year 6 child, she asked him why he seemed so tired, and he simply replied, "Miss, I'm always tired, I don't have a bed." And that moment changed Beck's life. It planted a seed for the charity, which is now addressing bed poverty. Me and Vicky have known Bex for years through going to Elim Family Festival. Whilst we were there quite some time ago now, she gave a testimony about how this happened and how it gripped her and how God kind of kept opening doors for Bex. But she, being a really incredibly busy person to start with, kind of didn't want to commit. And then because God kept opening doors and God kept putting opportunities there, Bex just kind of had to jump in with both feet. And the main thing of this was, Bex was saying to us, if God opens a door, go through it. Don't procrastinate. Don't put it off. If you see a problem, fix it. And Zarak now has transitioned from using this storage container there in the first picture to using a 16,000 square foot kind of warehouse. They've given out 10,000 beds to children living in poverty. So literally from nothing, it's grown to something amazing very quickly. When we, as a building group, we've had to write things for the Methodists, for Elim, and to trusts and fundraising groups in order to try and get money coming in for the building and to get support from Elim and to buy it from the Methodists in the first place. Now, things that we've identified as outreach or activities that the church are going to do, they're listed here on the left. So we've got kind of things like a food bank, a community cafe. We've got meeting rooms and office space and getting charities involved in using and utilising that space. We've got multi-church gatherings, so partnering with people like One Voice and other churches as well to worship God in that space. We've got student outreach St. John's being on the doorstep, and we've got the bigger university, obviously the main university. And as well as partnering with the Arts and Theatre 41, who are our nearest neighbours, we've got community engagement in the Groves. And I've done so much research into the demographics of the Groves as well, and there's a fair amount of isolation and need. They've had separate kind of reports that have looked at some of the challenges in that area. And it's one of the things that led to them kind of, that they've took cars out of the area. You're not allowed to drive down there now. And they're trying to build a community because they have identified that there's quite a lot of isolation there. You've got a high number of one-bedroom flats and bedsits. So you've got a lot of people who just, live with their own siblings or children in a one-bedroom space. So that I think as a church, that's our nearest neighbour. They're the people that we need to be reaching out to and supporting. But I've been conscious that really, for quite some time, I've been challenged by the fact that this stuff on the left is just a list. It's not a strategy. It's not even saying who. And really, collectively, we are the who. We need to be committed to making those things a reality. And as I've been preparing this as well, And you can see from Biogems and Zarak and other, there's more. You know, it's more than just our list. God's kind of saying, that's the low-hanging fruit, and there's more for you. And I think we as a collective community need to be saying, we're all in. We're committed to this. Now, St. Thomas's, they're our nearest kind of church community that are closest to our building. And I've engaged with them in doing some of the research, doing some of the grant applications, and also when we were buying the church in the first place, we didn't want to be stepping on toes. So we want to know what they're doing, so that we're doing something complementary. And we're going to watch a video just now, which is about something that they do in their community. They have the probationary services based pretty much next door, and they were talking to a couple of probationary officers. Now, the probationary officers were saying that outside of us, the probationary officers, there's no support for these people. And it'd be really nice if they could have somewhere where they can go, a drop in. So we're going to show the video. We haven't got permission to put it online. Yep. So, yeah, this is just for us in the room. So, like I said, it started off as an action to support the probation service. It had to stop during COVID, and when they opened it back up, they've opened it up to literally everybody. So this is anybody who's isolated. This is people who are potentially going to be homeless, as well as people who are being supported by the probationary service. It's a wide range of people, but it's quite touching how that kind of community and those challenges are being kind of just brought into the church. And you can see how well used it is as well, which I think's absolutely amazing. I think for me, when I look at our church, we're quite, I suppose, normal, a bit white middle class. Yeah, and I think that's possibly a challenge if different kind of communities and different people come in. How do we make sure that we relate to them? And we definitely need to make sure that we do and stay real and, you know, keep, I suppose, grounded in that way. Try and understand the challenges that people are facing. Okay, so I'm going to read this. So if you want to turn in your own Bibles, it's Luke chapter 10, verses 25 to 37. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. An expert in the law of Moses stood up and asked Jesus a question to see what he would say. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to have eternal life?" Jesus answered, "What is written in the scriptures? How do you understand them?" The man replied, "The scripture says, 'Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength and mind.' They also say, 'Love your neighbor as much as you love yourself.'" Jesus said, "You have given the right answer. If you do this, you will have eternal life." But the man wanted to show that he knew what he was talking about. So he asked Jesus, "Who are my neighbors?" Jesus replied, "As a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, robbers attacked him and grabbed everything that he had. They beat him up and ran off, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, but when he saw the man, he walked by on the other side. Later, a temple helper came to the same place, but when he saw the man who had been beaten up, he also went by on the other side. A man from Samaria then came travelling along the road. When he saw the man, he felt sorry for him and went over to him. He treated his wounds with olive oil and wine and bandaged them. Then he put him on his own donkey and took him to an inn where he took care of him. The next morning he gave the innkeeper 2 silver coins and said, "Please take care of the man. If you spend more than this on him, I will pay you when I return." Then Jesus asked, "Which one of these 3 people was a real neighbour to the man who was beaten up by robbers?" The expert in the law of Moses answered, "The one who showed pity." Jesus said, "Go and do the same." So we see in verses 25 to 27 that the experts in the law correctly identified that loving God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and loving your neighbours as much as yourself were the 2 most important commandments. Then Jesus tells a story which is a reflection of selfless love in action. And I've heard sermons on this in the past, which are often told in a humorous way, and they explain that the story is a little bit outrageous because to the audience, they would have believed that the priest and the temple worker would have been the people to help the man. And there would have been zero chance in their initial minds of the Samaritan taking that kind of action, because there was kind of conflict at the time between the 2 groups. So the Samaritans were somewhat looked down upon by the Jews. So when the Jews were taken into exile, which happened many years previous, there was sorry, let me find where I've got to. So it's basically when they were taken into exile, the Jews mixed with other cultures, and the Samaritans became a bigger kind of group as a consequence of that. And even today, Samaria is a region that's in the West Bank, which is obviously in the news quite a lot at the moment. But Jesus kind of sees through those kind of toxic relationships. We know that he healed lepers and spent time with people who were outcasts. We know that he spent time with people like Zacchaeus, who was a tax collector and probably not the nicest person. So we just need to learn to be a church who are welcoming for all. And I think having our welcome team training this morning, that's just the part of it. Us as a church, we've got to learn to be welcoming and hospitable to absolutely everybody. One of the questions that I thought about putting on a Slido, and I know that I'm rambling on for quite a long time now, is I was going to put on, how did you become a Christian? And it would have been really interesting to get a full picture around the room of how that happened for everybody else. And it would have been a survey this time, so you'd have had tick boxes of, I grew up in a church, or, whatever those kind of categories might have been. But I think kind of anybody who wasn't brought up in church and did become a Christian via a different route, that's us as in our mission and our outreach. That's what we need to focus on. And I think when I was at the baptismal services, when that was, it was fantastic to hear some of the testimonies about how people did join our community when really they kind of grew up on the outside of our community. So I think really in closing, we just need to learn to love each other and other people, learn who our neighbours are. So John 13, verse 34 and 35, I'm giving you a new command. You must love each other just as I have loved you. If you love each other, everyone will know that you're my disciples. So they'll see Jesus through us. And that's kind of my prayer for Monkgate, is that Monkgate is a shining light to the community and to the wider church. Yeah. I
to come up. We'll take up our offering at the end. But while they're doing it, I'll just have a few closing remarks. I was scared before I invited James up. Now I'm really scared. James has been absolutely amazing in driving some of the vision that we have, but we really feel, the leadership team and the project team, we really feel that this is an opportunity that God has put in front of us. And, you know, the words from Bex down in Leeds is, if a problem comes, you just got to go, and God opens the door, you just go through the door. And we're ready to make that step. And you will appreciate, even with the size of church we are, there's so much for us to do. And, but we will begin to filter a lot of this stuff. We can't do everything overnight, but we have a vision, and we have a dream, and we have a plan, and we have people who will pray and help us achieve what we can do. And so we're going to obviously whittle down some of those things, but it's so glad to hear from one of our key leaders to see what the potential of our church is. And James, thank you so much. John, James's dad, is going to share next week. John has said he's going to approach it quite differently, but that's okay as well, as we merge what God is saying through his word and into what is on our hearts as well.